Hello, my name is John. I'm going under the name of Blue Dog Politics here on YouTube as well as over on Twitter. I'm a moderate Democrat from the state of Pennsylvania. I'm 23 years old, finishing up my college degree here in the Commonwealth. And I created this outlet as a space to put out my election predictions, my thoughts, my opinions, in a space in which people would want to see that. So if you like the content I'm putting out, feel free to subscribe here on Twitter or follow me. Uh, Subscribe here on YouTube or go ahead and follow me on Twitter again at Blue Dog Politics. For my first video, I'm going to be doing a election prediction here of the 2020 race for president. I'm going to be doing this election prediction for November 3rd, so I'm not going to be doing it as if the election were going to be held today, because I think that's a really big discrepancy that I think needs to be cleared up. So this is going to be a prediction for how I think things will look on November 3rd, and in part I'll be using some of the indications we have today as well as what could potentially happen over the next couple of months. And one other thing of housekeeping to get clear, the way I rate states and the way we'll be rating states in this video as well as in future videos, we have 4 categories here on the 270 to win website. We have safe, likely, leans, and tilts. The way I kind of perceive that is that a safe state is a state won by double digits. So when we do this, these are going to be states that are won by 10 percentage points or more. Likely states, those are going to be states won between 10% and 5%. A lean state is a state that's won between 5% and 2%. And the tilt states, those are going to be the true toss-up states that are decided below um, below 2%. So as we go ahead and fill in the safe Democrat states, that's going to be California, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, New Mexico, Illinois, DC, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, in the 1st Congressional District in Maine. So as a starting point, these are going to be the safe Democrat states that I think are the most likely to vote by over 10 percentage points. As we go to the safe Republican states for Donald Trump, that's going to be Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska will be doing the at-large state vote for the 2 electoral votes, and then the 1st district and the 3rd district. Kansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Alaska. So every other state here shaded in gray I do think is up for grabs for either side, and I do think that these states also do garner a little bit more of a discussion than just selecting the state. I do want to make a note, though, of Montana, Kansas, and Missouri, as well as even Indiana. These are going to be states that I think could be a little bit more competitive than we saw in 2016. I still think that they're going to be safe states for Donald Trump, but I do think the margins will be lower. I think in the case of Montana, Kansas, and Missouri, the U.S. Senate races in these states are, sorry, the Montana and Kansas, the story there, I think, is going to be the U.S. Senate races that are occurring, and the results of those could help pull Joe Biden potentially a little bit closer. If we see Steve Bullock win in Montana, or we see Barbara Boiler win in Kansas. But again, those are some long shot U.S. Senate races, which we will talk about more in a separate video. I do want to acknowledge I do think Montana, Kansas, Missouri, and Indiana have the potential to be a little bit closer. But for this video, we're going to rate them as safe states. Going ahead, we'll start with Nevada. That's a state that's been trending strongly Democratic. I don't expect that to change too much this election, but I don't think that this is going to be a likely state that votes by more than 5 percentage points for Joe Biden. I think by November 3rd, this will be a state that's won between 2 and 5%. The state of Colorado, though, another strongly Democratic state in the last couple of years, I'm going to rate as a likely state for Joe Biden. Depending on how trends continue to evolve throughout the next couple of months, we could see this become a safe state for Joe Biden. If Joe Biden is able to build up a strong lead and has a strong campaign and is really dipping in the blue state or in the red states, we'll see Colorado become a safe blue state. But if we see Donald Trump resurge, we see him starting to dip into blue states, we could see Colorado as a prime target for him. As we head over towards the state of Virginia, we're going to be reading that as another likely Democratic state. This is a state that has a history over the last 8 to 12 years of being a strong Democratic state. In 2018, we saw strong performances here. 2017 and 2018, strong performances here for Democrats. I don't think that this is going to be a safe state this election cycle. Virginia is a very big state. You have the very strong Democrat counties around the DC metro area, around the Richmond area, that help to carry the state, but you still have a lot of rural areas and you have a lot of GOP support out there. However, I do think this will go to Joe Biden, as it did for Hillary Clinton, between 5 and 10 percentage points. And I don't think that this is going to be a state we're able to call right at poll closing on election night. This will probably be an 8 or a 9 p.m. Decision that's made. But these three states, Nevada, Colorado, and Virginia, are all states most people do agree that are likely to go to Joe Biden. I'm a little bit more hesitant with Nevada. It was a closer state than we expected in 2016, but we'll continue to watch that. As we head over towards New Hampshire, that's going to be a state I lean towards Joe Biden. This was not a strong state for him in the primaries, and I'm not someone who likes to say you did good in the primary, so you're going to do good on the general election. If that was the case, we would see states like Mississippi and South Carolina be in play for Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton, though, did have trouble here in the primary and also had trouble in the general election. And I do think Joe Biden has a little bit of trouble, or could have some trouble in New Hampshire. I think he's going to have to work for those 4 electoral votes. I don't think they're safe by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't think it's a true toss-up either. I definitely do think it leans towards Joe Biden. As we head over towards the state of Georgia, that'll be the next one we touch on. That's going to be a state I lean over towards Donald Trump. Democrats are starting to make some inroads here, and it isn't just with moderate candidates. We saw in 2018 Stacey Abrams, who was a strong progressive, or at least a little bit more progressive leaning, run here, and she only lost the governor's race by 2 percentage points. So this is a state that I think could potentially vote for Joe Biden. I think that this would be a state he could do well with. It's a young state, it's a diverse state, it's a college-educated state, all areas that Joe Biden tends to do good in, as well as the Democratic Party. But given the state's history, I would still lean it towards Donald Trump at this moment. And I think as things evolve, elections naturally get closer in the closing weeks. I think when you have to make a call, it'll probably end up leaning towards Donald Trump between about 2 and 3 percentage points. The state of Texas is another one that's been talked a lot about. I don't know how much in play it is, how prone it is to swing to Joe Biden, but this will definitely be a competitive state. We saw Beto O'Rourke come within 3 to 2.5 percentage points of beating Ted Cruz here. And while you could argue that that might have been more of just an anti-Ted Cruz vote, I also saw Hillary Clinton perform better in Texas than in Iowa or Ohio. So the trends are a little bit more friendly for Democrats. I still think that this will lean towards Donald Trump by the end of the day. I would maybe even consider putting it in the likely range, but those trends have yet to be seen. If this is a very good election for Joe Biden, this is going to be a state that all eyes are on. I don't think it'll be a tipping point state, and I wouldn't even classify it as a swing state right now, but I would classify it as a competitive state. For the state of Minnesota, been in the news a lot the last month and a half. I do think it leans Democratic, especially given the latest trends. Minnesota was a state that still voted for Hillary Clinton by 1.5 and I think it has the potential to vote between 2 and 5 percentage points for Joe Biden, given the support he has from Amy Klobuchar. Now we're kind of left with the true swing states, I think, of this election, except for the state of Iowa, which I would lean as a state towards Donald Trump. I think that that's a state that Joe Biden is going to be a little bit more competitive in than Hillary Clinton, but I do think it will end up going to Donald Trump rather. Probably close to 5 percentage points, so maybe teetering on the likely range, but again, we'll continue to watch that and we'll see what happens. But what's left, I think, are the true states that are going to decide this election. The state of Michigan will be the first one of these states that I talk about. This, I think, is the most prone state to vote Democratic in 2020. Gretchen Whitmer has a very strong approval rating here. We're seeing Gary Peters perform very well here. Debbie Stabenow went pretty big here. And I think this is going to be a state that leans towards Joe Biden. I don't think that this is going to be a double-digit win like some of the polls are suggesting. This will get closer, and I think Joe Biden could win this by about 4 or 5 percentage points. The state of Pennsylvania, where I'm from, this is another state that I think is going to be pivotal to either side. Just based off of what I've seen, it seems like Trump has a pretty good ground game out here. Granted, the latest polls that are coming out are showing between a 5 and a 10 percentage point lead for Joe Biden. I will give this a tilt towards Joe Biden. I think this state will be decided by less than 2 percentage points by the time all is said and done. Again, if it's a good election for Joe Biden and he's polling in states like Texas, that means he's won comfortably in the Rust Belt. If this is a good election for Donald Trump, he's winning the Sun Belt and he's making inroads back in the Midwest. This is going to be a state that determines the election like it did in 2016. I would have the exact same description of the state of Wisconsin. Despite the strong polling lead, Joe Biden has, I think that Donald Trump has a very real possibility of carrying this state. As we head down to the state of Arizona, I'm actually going to give this a lean towards Joe Biden right now. Joe Biden has been polling rather strong here, between about 4 and 5 percentage points. The U.S. Senate race here is likely going to be what helps Joe Biden win this state. Mark Kelly is doing very well against Martha McSally. And I think if Mark Kelly does indeed win the race by 7, 8, 9 percentage points, that's going to start to bring over some support to Joe Biden. I don't know how many Donald Trump, Mark Kelly voters are going to be. So that's going to be a state that I think is going to lean towards Joe Biden. And you already see we have Joe Biden winning this election right now with 287 votes, but we'll continue to fill out the states. Ohio is going to be a state actually only tilts towards Donald Trump. I think this state has the potential to get closer. Current polling trends show a close race here. I think Donald Trump still has the edge here. This is a state he did very well in last time, and I think has the potential to do very well in for this election. But again, it'll come down to if Joe Biden is doing really good, this is going to be a state that I think is going to be very winnable for Joe Biden. For the state of North Carolina, that's actually a state I'm going to tilt towards Donald Trump. I think, like other Sunbelt states, a state that has the potential to vote Democratic, this could come down to how the U.S. Senate race plays out down here. I think if Cal Cunningham does well, we could see Joe Biden get enough edge to pull him over the finish line. But the only time this century that North Carolina voted Democrat was by, 14,000 votes in 2008, which was a strong Democrat year. But we'll see. Hillary Clinton made a strong play for this, and Joe Biden currently does have a very strong polling lead given this state. This state of Florida, I'm actually only going to tilt to Donald Trump. I don't think that Donald Trump will win this by more than 2 percentage points. I think either side will only win this by 2 points. In a close election, Florida, I think, goes to Donald Trump. In a Joe Biden winning election that's won by over 300 electoral votes, we could see Florida flip to Joe Biden. As we head up to the last couple of areas, Maine at large, I think is going to be a lean for Joe Biden, like it was for Hillary Clinton, and I would give the 2nd district in Maine a lean towards Donald Trump. While I did vote by 10 points for him in 2016. Recent voting reform laws, ranked choice voting, has been instated in this state. We saw the 2nd congressional district flip from red to blue in 2018. I would still give the lean towards Donald Trump, but I think Joe Biden does have the potential to win this. And last but not least, Nebraska 2nd, I would give a tilt to Donald Trump in that area. But again, very winnable for Joe Biden. Donald Trump only carried it by 2 points in 2016. So my current election prediction is 289 for Joe Biden, 249 for Donald Trump. I do think this election can go either way. I don't think this election will be decided by 14 points, by 12 points. I think this election will probably be decided by less than 5 points. And it'll really come down to these key states we talked about. But that's it for me today. Thank you for following and thank you for watching along. If you just skipped to the end of the video, this is going to be a very interesting election, I think. Again, follow me here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button or follow me over on Twitter for my latest updates and what I currently think of the current political environment. But thank you so much for watching. I'm John of Blue Dog Politics, and keep it tuned right here for the latest information.